now we've got Venky with us. He's one of the residents, so we're now on to the resident section. And as always, we have another example of the neighbourhood watch scheme being set up. So Venky, all yours.
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Venky Chetty. Been setting up a neighbourhood watch in the West Impali area. This is for people who don't know, it's basically more just near about the traffic college. It's a very fairly recent establishment that's going to come up. And that's the reason my question was are there any CCTVs in that area? Because the crime was really high some time back. So quickly, I'll just break this up into 4 sections of where we are and what are the issues that we face setting it up, what the status is today, and what we would like to propose going forward. So the estate is about 50 plots. It was a smallish estate, but then there's an older estate called Stamford Brook Residence, which is quite a large establishment, and this is extending right up from the traffic college right up to the Waitrose. That the whole section is probably 200 or 300 plots, I'm not sure. So it's a large residential establishment which really came up in the last 7 to 10 years, and our Birches, as we are called, we have about 50 plots, and it's a good healthy mix of, because of about 2 families, locals, and also a few immigrants who came into the country maybe in the last 15-20 years. Now, while it's a new estate, and that's also possibly why we faced a few incidents of crime very early on, because new homes, new cars, new families coming in without a doubt of or without an idea of what would happen. Because if I take my personal example, I never dreamt that this is actually going to be a risk. Because number one, it's supposed to be a safe neighborhood. Number two, you don't expect to be burglared when you are inside a closed house or a closed establishment. Like you have a locked door, you have a locked garage, you have a locked garden, but then yes, things happen. And generally what we have faced is 2 kinds of theft. We faced car theft because of the new cars, and it's fairly an estate where you have doctors or you have a little upper middle class economical strata families. And the cars also were of the higher end, maybe when I say higher end, like Range Rovers and X5s. But then that's exactly what the burglars were looking for. House burglars, because the new houses that came up needed stuff to be done. They needed extensions to be connected, or somebody wanted a sun room, and you had different workforces coming in also, who basically are advertised on the internet. So we don't know where they're coming from, and we don't know how safe they are. But then after a couple of months, my neighbor who did a orangery, and he got burglared just a month after the orangery was created. So there are question marks. Now, was it the guys who created the orangery who gave the details of how it can be burglared? But we don't know. So just tell you why this neighborhood watch came up in the first place. And we put this across together, and that brings me to the second point of what issues we faced while setting it out. It's not really welcome. Very surprisingly, it wasn't welcomed by everyone. They said, why do you need a neighborhood watch? And we said, it's basically look after ourselves and give the police a helping hand. No, but that would actually put a question mark on the estate. Bring down the prices. I said, I don't know what kind of focus was this, but we did face our criticism. But then, fortunately for us, the majority thought it's a good idea to go forward. So we did set it up, and they said, okay, what will you do? They said, we put up signage and we put up some scheme, and who will pay for it? So we didn't have any idea how it would really be paid for. So we ended up contributing ourselves. A few of the like-minded people contributed, while the majority stayed away. And we set up a fund, and then we collected the signage. We did contact Rahil, and I think at that time Rahil did mention that yes, there is a budget, but then it's not so big, so probably you'll have to manage on your own. We'll try and see what we can get. But nevertheless, we set it up. And once it was set up, obviously I think information of what it would help or how it should be taken forward was missing, because that's the point probably I need to also address when I came is, how does this connect with the security or the police or the services of what do we do in terms of how do we connect with them on a regular basis? Do we get updates? So So there was not much of information available, unfortunately. I am quite well informed now on this meeting what we can do as a group, but at that time it wasn't there. Status today, we have basically a marked reduction in cases, fortunately. I think a big thanks would go to the idea of having a neighborhood watch, because definitely anybody wanting to do a crime or maybe try and steal a vehicle is seeing the signage and knows that people would be looking out. Our members are very active, and I think they report a number of unfamiliar vehicles or unauthorized personnel coming across. It was a funny incident because it came up to the point where one person, and we have a WhatsApp group in our group in our estate, and we generally share a lot of information about if somebody needs a plumber or somebody needs some more help. So it's all there, including this neighborhood watch information is also there. And one of the neighbors posted somebody's photograph, a man with a hoodie, and he said the suspicious man is going up and down for the last 15 minutes. And then somebody wrote, that idiot, that's me, I'm your neighbor. so it did bring it up to a point where people are overly cautious, but then that's what happened. And then I think what I wouldn't mention this because I've been updated, so there are a few points which I probably skipped. And let's say I can't read my own handwriting. So so there's one more thing which was quite interesting, which helped a lot even for us to get information, was camera bells, the ring systems which are there now. So anybody coming through are getting captured, even though they don't know. So for example, recently there was a couple of youths, I guess, completely covered head to toe in black with a face mask, and they were just getting into everybody's garden, trying and checking, and they were specifically they were targeting BMW cars, because they tried my car, they tried a neighbor's car, they got into my garden, I captured them on the Ring camera, and we of course posted it onto the police website, and then there was a check, a couple of police officers come across and they saw the camera photograph, but then unfortunately couldn't do much because they were completely covered. So, but then definitely this is also a new system that is helping. However, having said that, I read an article where there is also privacy issues now. You can't have too much camera coverage, so it's a question mark. Going forward, a suggestion from the group was, can we have more information being exchanged between different neighborhoods and not just a common neighborhood, but then, for example, if there was a neighborhood in Bowden, or there's one in Hale, one in Altrincham city town, or there's one in Timperley, where if there's an incident, it should be quickly flashed on into this like a social media thing, where if anything else, if it has the police try to get information across quickly, okay, we noticed the same car which was stolen here in this area, because we need to understand and appreciate also that they can't be everywhere at the same time. So that was one suggestion. And also we needed more clarity on how to deal with the burglar. For example, there was a discussion going on in our WhatsApp group, is that, okay, if I get a burglar, what do I do? How do I stop him? Because there are laws protecting the burglar, that you can't do X, Y, Z to him, you can't bodily hurt him, you can't stop him, you can't, even if he has an accident in your house, then you're liable. So there were so many thoughts that came in, and which led them at a point that, how do we deal with something like this? Because there was a burglar in a neighbor's house recently, and she reported it, and we all rushed out. Actually, it happened in the night, so 2 or 3 families, we came out and the burglar ran away. But then she could have stopped him on her own, but she was scared, if I hit him with something, will I get into trouble? So that's the question which was there, So roughly that was there, and I think, that's about it that I've got time for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venky. That was very interesting, and I think perhaps Alan might want to address that question at the end. What can you do if you're confronted with a burglar?
Can I just ask one question? So
Sure.
You said that there was some skepticism with a number of people who sort of said, why do we need it? But a few of you got together and organised the the neighbourhood watch. Have you won over some of those sceptics? Have some of those people now recognised the value of what you've done? Or are they still...
Well, I hope they have recognized, because nobody said anything. So I'm assuming that everybody is happy now. Probably they were at the point wondering if it's going to affect the prices in real estate. I mean, you know, that was really funny for me, because I said, I don't know, I think everything is connected to also insurance, premiums going up, house prices going down, people thinking that, oh, this is a very crime infested area. So I said, I don't think the neighborhood watch schemes are set up for, I mean, because there's high crime going on. It's just one way of making yourself self-sufficient. And that was the whole idea. But then, yes, we have exceptions. We have people who think differently, which is fine.
And have you set up a WhatsApp group?
Yes, we had. We had a WhatsApp group originally. So we have 50 houses, and all of us really set up one. So there are social media groups generally are becoming more of a help rather than an irritation, especially for such things, because we made it a point, no rubbish, no unnecessary news on WhatsApp. So yeah, this is really helping, definitely.
Yeah, we've set up a WhatsApp group, and unfortunately because of the gales, on our street there's been a power cut.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact it's quite warm in here, because it's still, the power cut's still there till about 8 o'clock tonight. But because we've got a WhatsApp group, everyone's sort of messaging each other. Somebody was feeling cold, somebody else said, you know, have you got a log fire and things.
Okay.
There's a really, really nice feeling of support, and you know, I think the council was talking about feeling safe. And in some ways, once you set it up, you set up that group, you can win over skeptics just by supporting each other as time goes by.
No, definitely, yeah, really. I mean, that's also one more point which came up is, you know, generally you have this WhatsApp button which would be on websites. So is there a communication channel? I mean, obviously I'm asking a very big question to the services and the police, that is there a WhatsApp channel that you can actually send a message? It may or may not be possible.
I think the problem is, and we've discussed this a lot, you'd be surprised. I think when I first asked the question about WhatsApp groups and home watch groups, how many there were, I was expecting the answer was going to be 3 or 4 in the community. We're talking hundreds.
Yeah.
140 something. So what we did do, Simon did a piece of work earlier on in the year to try and identify somebody who was kind of in connection with all that. Because again, it goes back to what I was trying to talk to you about earlier. It's about reach.
Yeah.
It's about reaching out to everybody and giving everybody the same message. Because what we find is our message is checkered. We reach some communities because of circumstances that put us there. There are more victims, therefore we're engaging more. We've got community groups like this one. This is the best way of trying to achieve this. If these WhatsApp groups, like you say, one of the hardest things is creating that connection with these groups and having, yeah. So it's not a simple answer, unfortunately. There are far too many groups out there to be able to communicate individually, and if for me, if we could create some sort of a structure with it, and we could put this message out. I mean, we try to focus our energy into the main groups, but there are dozens and dozens, and I hope that more people will come to meetings just like this one from the smaller groups, so that we're getting that reach. But yeah, unfortunately, like I say, it's like we all call it networking. It's having that pyramid structure, and I think if it's brilliant what you're doing. It is absolutely brilliant, and some really good points that you were raising there. I'll discuss some of those with you later. But when you're putting these things together, if you could discuss some sort of way of how do we create bridges of communication with the police, and how we can do that. If we could just have one point of contact, or 2 or 3, or over 100, that creates.
Yeah, it's
I think I would just extend what Alan was saying. So Alan has, we met up separately, Simon, Alan and ourselves. Simon has kindly shared his number with me as a point of contact, which is why it would be Feel Safe WhatsApp group. I do tend to, often say, if there's a suspicious activity, you've got some photographs or some information, and you've not already contacted the police, which is the first thing to do really if you see something suspicious, share it with me and I can pass it on. So at a small level right now, I could liaise. We have an admin group, so it depends how this sort of escalates. If it becomes too much, then obviously we have more of the administrators taking on the responsibility of communicating with the PCSOs. But yeah, there are a lot of groups, isn't it? So I did set up a Trafford Network Association WhatsApp group as well. But actually they're all in Be Safe, Feel Safe, so there's just too much duplication happening. So we'll figure it out. But at the moment, if you do have some concern and you do want to pass it on, let me know and I can do that. Yeah.
Just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
I'm for the Marine Drive, I'm the contact person. So before we used to get email every week about the incidents happening in the Trafford, and that email.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe a year or 2 years before, we used to get an email every week saying that how many incidents are happening in the area. But that email has stopped coming to us now.
I'm not aware of.
That's your IT system thing. You know, when you guys changed to the new IT system, the reports stopped coming and it's been
Right.
a year and a half.
Yeah,
years
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware, I'll be honest, the divisions I've worked on, I wasn't sure that we ever did anything like that. That would have been a Trafford arrangement that you had with the division. I do know, it's like we've alluded to, it's not the simplest system at the moment to work with, and that's perhaps why, I mean, to work with this system analytically, it's very quite complex. You know, the old system was a little bit more user-friendly and it would give us this information in a heartbeat, but now quite difficult. So I should imagine it's something to do with that. But I mean, do you know where the link was, the connection? Where was the...
It used to come from Trafford Police, I think, every week. So it was very handy for us to just forward it to our contact group in our area, so everybody was aware of what's going on. I can forward it to that email where it is to come, right? So
Yeah, you can forward it to me.
Yeah.
Because I know at the time I was not sort of
Yeah.
engaged. So if you send it to me, I can let you know.
Yeah, we could have a look at any old emails that you've got so we can try and establish what that route was and how that was. What is it? Whereabouts do you live particularly? Bolton.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And was that through a WhatsApp group or?
No, it was an email from the Trafford Police that any incident happened in the previous week in the whole of the Trafford.
Yeah, it used to go to the all of the neighborhood watch coordinators. So it used to be copied to all of them.
Okay. Yeah. Again, it goes back to what we were saying, that there's so many now. I don't know whether that's increased, but that level of joint communication, we try to maintain contact with a lot, but there are so many. So there is only so much we can try and effectively communicate with. But yeah, I'd be really happy to have a look at that email and see if we can look at creating that sort of information sharing again in the future if I can. So it's a real good idea.
Thank you.